So this panel, although they may look kind of like a rogues gallery, they're actually pretty decent, great Americans from my vantage point. And they're going to help bring in this discussion here about the second panel, the second kind of session regarding Alaskans as strong partners. This is focusing on strengthening partnerships with the Department of Defense. Again, getting back to the original ask of Brittany and Mayor Ward on how can Alaskans support DoD as DoD really invests more heartily in the Arctic and in Alaska. So with this group, we're going to go in sequence. Each of these folks have slides. We got the magical slide man at the back there is going to make it all happen. You can bring the first slide deck up here for Mr. Rowe, George Rowe. And we got the following distinguished speakers that will go in sequence, and then after, they're each going to come to the podium or sit there, depending on what your druthers are. And then we've got a few minutes for Q&A. I'm sorry for the podium being in the way. If you need to shift around, you're welcome to. But we have, first of all, from the brand new Director of Arctic, the Office of Arctic Energy, the Department of Energy, Mr. George Rowe, who's just an absolute champion of goodness, longtime member of the University of Alaska Fairbanks. And actually, for the first time seeing outside of actually a two-dimensional vantage point, I'm getting a chance to meet myself, first person, Mr. Bruno Grunau, the Regional Director of the Cold Climate Housing and Research Center of the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. And a longtime friend of the Arctic Domain Awareness Center, and an absolute champion of goodness, coming all the way from New Jersey, Mr. Eric Velte, who serves as the Senior Vice President and the Chief Technology Officer for ASRC Federal Mission Solutions. Last but not least is Mr. Ed Slater, the Director of the Government Aviation and OneWeb. So we're going to go through this sequence first, and then we'll go through making Arctic elevation data available through the Geodata Cooperative, and we'll introduce that group next. So starting off with, we have, again, the distinguished Mr. George Rowe, who's the Director of the new Office of Arctic Energy, Department of Energy, hosted here at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. George, I respectfully give you the floor.
Thank you, Church. I was here at the previous one of these with a different hat on, and it's so exciting to be here with the Department of Energy. I love so many of the catchphrases from earlier today, but the one that really captured my heart was this idea of looking at the fact that we have a place that we share, and whether you're wearing a uniform or Carhartts, or maybe both, depending on time of day, we have shared destinies, and we need to be looking at the world through these lenses of how we can work together. So I am with the Arctic Energy Office. I'm the director there. Our facility is right about where that arrow is on the 4th floor of the Engineering, Learning, and Innovation facility at the UAF campus. One of my team members is actually down in Anchorage right now, making some lots of stuff to catch up on. So we cross-cut the Department of Energy. So we're at a peer level with all of the offices within the department, and we work in the circumpolar north. So the lessons that can be learned, that can be shared, the challenges that are faced don't stop at national boundaries. They're things that are shared regionally, and the thing that we're trying to find is pathways where things can be done in the north that are relevant outside of the north. We talked about some of the installations of the future, for example, in the most recent talk. There are so many lessons learned that can be practiced here and shared beyond, and vice versa. So, in terms of that shared environment, the thing that is dominant is that it's changing. So there's just not a lot of time for sitting around and noodling. We have to be paying attention to what's happening and then using some of the modeling capabilities to try to forecast where is the environment going, how's the infrastructure going to react to that, what are the needs going to be, how's the population, the manufacturing, et cetera, going to evolve. And there's just a huge range in size and criticality of things that need to be addressed. So it's a challenging workspace, definitely an all of the above situation. The work that the Department of Energy does is quite diverse, from very, very early stage technology evolution that is what's called the Advanced Research Project Agency in Energy at ARPA-E, through things that we're perhaps more familiar with. One thing I would do is just emphasize that there are 17 national laboratories in the Department of Energy. 11 of them are functioning in one way or another in the Alaska and Arctic region. One of them, the National Renewable Energy Lab, is going to talk to you right after me. Cold Climate Housing Research Center is actually part of NREL, and it's a real cool opportunity for Alaskans to bring built environment but renewable energy, energy efficiency things right here. It's a pathway to the pretty cool resource. So there's a lot of science things going on, but I want to talk about a couple projects that are, I think, very interesting. There's a lot of money that is going to go out here in the next year focused on resilient, sustainable energy systems, things that can be used in a variety of different contexts at different scales, whether installation, all the way down to expeditionary, and in between. And so the idea of taking advantage of Alaska expertise in microgrid technology and recognizing that the energy systems of the future will not just be electricity. They will be, we need to be looking at integrated thermal systems with the electricity, and we need to be looking at transportation. So this idea of holistically looking at resilience and integration is going to be super important. And it's true across the Arctic. We only have a few minutes, so I'm not going to belabor any of these things. Modular infrastructure is something that we need. This is an illustration of in Akutan. I was there about 6 years ago, actually, which is when these photos were done. The idea of Alaska communities that are moving or that are retreating in place, I think is the thing that they use. The idea being to manage retreat. How can we modularize infrastructure, share lessons learned, so everything is not a one-off kind of a deal? How can we take things and use them, tailor them in multiple settings? And then that is going to be applicable well beyond the Arctic, whether it's because of floods or fires or whatever. It's a global business opportunity. If we can be creating things that meet our needs, we can create economic base for the people that call Alaska home and export the skills and the technologies. As Churchill once said, never waste a good crisis. So this is a crisis within which we are. Transportation, electrification is another thing that will be in the future. You see here things that you're used to, like electric cars and buses. You might have seen the school bus in Tok that's all electric. I am on the list for that F-150 Lightning that's in the center there. It's an all-electric pickup. I'm really excited about seeing if that works. You may have been on a cruise ship that had what's called cold ironing capability down in Juneau, for example. No diesel operations in the harbor when it's hooked up to power. Snow machines that are coming out with range that are comparable to gasoline things, and even aviation. So there's multiple companies that are looking at passenger-carrying airplanes that are going to be certified here in the next 3 years for human use. The thing that is intriguing is up here for us, low temperatures, infrastructure investment for charging, et cetera, these are real challenges in terms of the performance of electric systems. And we're trying to engage the workforce of the future locally in terms of trying to address that by using electric bicycles. So we have 3 electric bikes at our office. I used one twice now, 2 different trips, because I couldn't get a rental car. And so I took a lift, left my suitcase at the office, and then just took my rucksack and rode my bike back and forth to the hotel. And it worked great. I'm an old guy. And the hills, there were no hills. It was just pedal assist. And so the idea of working with students to track the battery performance, impacts of temperature, use habits, these, where should we charge them? How should we shelter them? These are all things that are highly relevant to much more expensive assets that have the same functional challenges. So that's just a fun illustration of what we're going to do. And we're looking at whether there are applications for advanced reactors in different parts of the state. There's a whole range of considerations on that. Should it be at a military base? Should it be at a remote mine? Should it be in a large community? Would they ever be ready for small communities? There's an actual working group that we're part of that is exploring some of these very issues. Some of you in the audience are actually part of that. And I see Kathy, Don, other people are part of that. And it's important for us to be walking together and exploring that. The Alaska Center for Energy and Power is a key player there, and you can see a report that was written there, and then the Center for Economic Development did a market survey related to that. So, the future, full of threats. We have aspirations. We must live within the realities. We have to find the path that navigates through the reefs, but helps us get to the port that we desire. For the Department of Energy and for the state of Alaska and the Arctic region, climate challenge and just the climate change realities, key things, equity, justice, aspects in terms of investing, in terms of new energy infrastructure, looking at energy burden effects, et cetera, and how do we get technology that's appropriate out in the field. I would love to talk with any of you. What was that Allison said, connect to change or something like that? That's what I want to do. So if there's anything I can do to tie you into the Department of Energy resources, let me know. I'm glad to help. Thank you.
Great. Round of applause for our good friend George here. Thank you. So be thinking about any questions we can ask these folks as we finish up with the panels. But now we have, without further ado, Mr. Bruno Grunau, the Regional Director of the Cold Climate, Housing, and Research Center at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. Bruno, you got the floor, sir.
Thank you very much. Well, so if any of you have been here for a while, you may recognize this place. This is the Cold Climate Housing Research Center. We are located on UAF campus here. The organization's been around for 20 years. The building has been here since about 2007. We invite tours, we invite you all. Once the COVID stuff can get under control, we would like to have everybody here come through and tour our facility. There's a lot to talk about. The work we start here has to do with housing and infrastructure and in cold climates. And so one thing that we all have in common here is that everyone lives in a shelter. And a lot of the homes that are built, particularly in Fairbanks and anywhere really along the rail belt, the houses came up and they were built as a result of people came up with the pipeline, right? And people who came up with the pipeline learned to build houses in Arkansas or Oklahoma, where they came from, and those who stayed said, I'm going to build houses like I did in Oklahoma and in Arkansas. And ask yourself, how well did that do, right? Energy prices go up. And of course, like anybody, like we do when we get cold, we put a jacket on. If you don't know any better, what a lot of people did was they took the siding off, slapped a little bit of insulation on there just to make themselves a little bit warmer, and it caused other problems. The kind of problems they caused were moisture building up inside those walls. And those moisture that builds up inside those walls causes a lot of problems. You get mold, you get rot, you have building failures, and even worse, because it's more insidious, you don't see it, is it can make you sick. You can make homes that make us sick. So the military, of course, has the same challenge as every one of us have in common here, right? People move up here, and if you're not used to it and you get a bill for $6,000 to keep your house warm on top of your electric bill, that's a shocker, right? And that's a shocker for anyone who wants to come up and stay, and especially if you're trying to bring people up from wherever, lower 48, could do assignment here. It's hard to keep people with this kind of situation. So we have high construction costs because you ship everything up here. We have a housing shortage. We've been talking about this with the F-35s coming in. Where are we going to put our airmen and airwomen? Are we going to put them on base? What about out in the community? How are we going to handle that? And so, of course, the community has been talking about this for several years, and it's a challenge. And so this is something that we have to address. We also have, again, high energy costs, unhealthy buildings we talked about. We also have lack of affordable, resilient energy systems. Right now, all of our energy, the lights are running off of coal from Healy. All the gas you're driving on and the oil in your homes, that's all imported from outside. Now, as we have abundant renewable energy out here, but how do we connect the dotted lines so that we can get a hold of them and use them ourselves? So CCHRC, the Kolklein Housing Research Center, was founded 20 years ago to address a lot of these, basically durable, affordable, sustainable shelter in the North, addressing a lot of these issues. We had an incredible opportunity to expand our mission and become a part of one of the national laboratories. We became, last year, part of the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, and it's really exciting because now we expand the mission we do, not just the housing, but energy at large, right? Energy efficiency, renewable energy, and energy integration. And what's so neat now I'm the regional director of the Cold Climate Housing Research Center, which is part of NREL, but we have our sister nonprofit, which is still here, the Cold Climate Housing Research Center. Our executive director is there in the back, Mindy O'Neill. So we have this great partnership that is, it's going to support us. It gives two doors to knock on. You have the national lab door to knock on. You have the nonprofit side to work on. What that means is it gives more accessibility, not just the military, but also just our tribes, our individuals in the community, it just gives more options. So what are we doing? What we're doing is improving the performance of the homes. Obviously, just like every one of you, we want to reduce our bills. We want to make sure our houses are affordable. We want to make sure our houses, not just affordable to build, but affordable to live in. I mean, the biggest cost of a house is the operational cost, particularly up here. And also, we look at security and resilience. You know, we've got decades of experience in this, not just with military installations, but also in communities. You know, for the military, and what that looks like is a little differently, right? You know, military wants cyber secure, resilient energy infrastructure with good, resilient backup. Communities, you know, also when it's 40 below, you got problems, right? Communities at large have the same problems, right? You have most of the energy is brought in with bulk fuel from outside. You got to stay warm. And so resilience in those communities means using less energy, right? We work with a lot of these communities that George brought up that are falling into the sea, or of the 30 some odd communities are identified as imminently threatened, you know, by climate change. And now they have these other parts that are part of security and resilience that are beyond just energy efficiency and housing, but it's all connected. I'll keep mine short, right? So what are the ways we approach this? We approach this with our facility. We've been working on actually figuring out how to lower the cost of construction, also figuring out how to make sure, how to reduce the cost of operating that building. We do that through efficient, durable building envelopes, got new ways to build. We're not building like they did in Oklahoma in 1974. Same thing with heating and ventilation technologies. It's not always obvious. If you're brought up in lower 48, it's not obvious that you need like HRV. How many of you, maybe you don't know what HRV is, heat recovery ventilator, right? A way to exchange the fresh air from outside with the stale air from inside and recovering that heat so you're not just paying for like an open window, right? And then, of course, we bring in our socioeconomics to an analysis to ensure a really great return on investment. Then we get into, this is the part where now we're part of NREL that has really allowed us to kind of expand our capabilities. This is where we work with resilience and security through local resources and energy efficiency to provide reliable power and reduce fuel imports. We work with partners like ASEP, where we can help deploy islandable microgrids that use local energy sources. We integrate renewables into the backup systems so that we can maintain these critical services when emergencies happen, when there are supply chain issues. We can conduct local assessments of regional interdependencies for communities. And so all of this is to say, well, a good example, by the way, we're working with Fort Wainwright to address some of these issues right now, right? They got this aging power plant. What are we doing? Working with ASEP and Army Corps of Engineers, Cold Regions Research Engineering Laboratory to tackle some of these issues. We're looking at the resilience of buildings. How long do they take for they freeze? What can we do about that? What about coming up with durable building envelope retrofits? And then, of course, what are alternatives that we have for this aging power plant? So that's an example of what we're doing right now. We have the tools, we have the experience, and one of the things we do, especially when we work in the villages, we say, look, you've been here for 10,000 years. We have, this technology and the latest, greatest energy building science. How do we merge the traditional knowledge with 21st century technology and tools? How do we co-develop these together? And that approach we take in our villages to come up with solutions that work with buy-in, workforce development, everything. That same approach we do with all of our partners, and that same goes with the military. So we got the tools. We want to think about looking ahead. We don't want to think about 20 homes that were designed for 20, 30 years, and now we're beyond that 20, 30-year mark, and now we're dealing with some of those problems. So how do we look ahead? How do we think about what resilient homes, resilient infrastructure looks like? We're here. We want to be part of the conversation. If we can help you, we'd love to help you. So I'll pass this off. Thank you.
Outstanding. A round of applause for Bruno. Well done, sir. And coming to the stage now is Mr. Eric Velte, Senior Vice President, Chief Technology Officer, Arctic Slope Regional Corporation, Federal Mission Solutions. Eric, you've got the floor, and our slide man is going to make it happen for you momentarily.
All right. Well, nice to see everybody. Always fun to be back up here in Alaska. As Church said, I'm actually out of New Jersey, so I'll have to put my Philly fast-talking skills to the test today to try and get us back on track here. So I work for a company called ASRC Federal, and Arctic Slope Regional Corporation is probably the mightiest small business that you didn't know you know, right? So we're everywhere throughout the United States and even worldwide, and we are focused here in Alaska. As Nolan Cloud has said back in the lunchtime session, it really is unique to have an Alaska corporation inverting the way that money flows into the state of Alaska. We actually have about 8,000 people in ASRC Federal. It's one of 6 subsidiaries from the Arctic Slope Regional Corporation, which is an Alaskan Native corporation based on the North Slope of Alaska. We have operations in over 44 states in the lower, including Alaska, and we partner with the federal government as part of ASRC Federal. And we'll talk a little bit about our customers in a sec. We have about 8,000 employees across the U.S. and in Oconus today, in all kinds of things. Some fun facts about ASRC Federal that are related to Alaska. ASRC Federal code is currently running in the F-35 fighter. Right, if you're doing fire control from the cockpit of an F-35, there's ASRC Federal code in there. When SpaceX launched a few people to the International Space Station a few months ago for the crewed mission, ASRC Federal was there helping them with launch operations and providing engineering and telemetry information. So mighty little company. Even though we are a small business and a small company, we are the largest privately held company within the state of Alaska and have been for about the last 20 years. ASRC Federal started out in 2003. We've been going at it for a couple decades now. Our customer landscape and our partner landscape really looks like the entire a slice of the federal government. We do a lot of work with the DoD, represents about 40% of our portfolio. Air Force, Army, and the new Space Force representing the largest components of that. We also do have a lot of work in the intel community and in the space community and in national security domains. Technology-wise, we're a very technology-forward, capability-based company. I think Allison said a little bit earlier today that we need to be making data-driven decisions. And even though a lot of our infrastructure and a lot of our support for the DoD is in facilities and base infrastructure, we still have a tremendous focus on technology and where it applies in those domains. We've been partners with folks like ADAC for a number of years now, and trying to bring data-driven solutions to our partners in the field who have tactical missions. A couple of those tactical missions that we talk about, folks that know satellite data acquisition know that NRL runs a number of sites, Naval Research Lab down in Maryland for satellite data collection. And that's something that's going to be important, I think, for the future of Alaska, and we'll get to that in a sec. But ASRC Federal runs the facility down there. All command and control operations for those satellites that are in flight are being handled by our teams. And we've actually pivoted that whole site to what we call a lights dim architecture that we brought automation and AI to the point where we can eliminate or repurpose, retask humans in the loop and take up a lot of the processing tasks with technology. So I've been able to bring that to the table. A lot of you might not know that we run the Alaska radar system. It's 16 sites around Alaska, very austere conditions. We're talking about temperatures where heavy fuels tend to gel. We're talking about large, $4 billion worth of facilities and equipment that need to be sustained for a very critical mission, not just an early warning mission, but FAA radar mission. We just completed a service life extension program with our partners at Lockheed a couple of years ago to even prolong those sites even longer than their estimated service life. All the challenges that come along with that, from climate, from location, a lack of communications, lack of supply, and the huge logistical challenge that goes along with ARS and BEARS. Long-range discrimination radar, another proud part of our portfolio. We're partners with our Lockheed Martin team, and a lot of the folks and the familiar faces in the room I got to know, and we were looking at the Clear as the site for that particular radar, and we were able to bring a uniquely Alaskan feel to the LRDR. And that included partnerships with small businesses across the state of Alaska. In fact, the last time I was in this room before today was at a small business event we had put together with Kathy and her team to really find suppliers, small businesses, a lot of retired military from across the state of Alaska who are looking to be suppliers for really important capability there. Not just facilities and missions, but also our shareholders are up on the North Slope of Alaska. And unlike a lot of large corporations, we work directly for our shareholders. All of the profits that we generate as a company come back to our shareholder community located here in Alaska on the North Slope and also throughout the U.S., individual shareholders. But providing opportunities for those shareholders to get involved in your missions. Arctic Edge, a couple of years ago, we were able to connect the DoD and the mission owners with people who have experience and expertise in the conditions on the North Slope, minus 50-degree temperatures, different ice conditions, what's traversable, what's not. You find out that metal shrinks at different rates at temperatures that low, which makes things really hard to open up a missile flap on a guided missile frigate, right? When you're at 40 degrees below zero. So a lot of good stuff going on there with Arctic Edge, and we do appreciate our shareholders and our communities up there in the North Slope Borough helping out with those sorts of things. I have about half a minute left here, but I really wanted to talk about where Alaska's going, not just where ASRC Federal and the Arctic Slope Regional Corporation is. There's a lot of strategic opportunity here in Alaska, and we're starting to see it. In addition to helping our mission owners and our partners achieve their missions, we also make investments in the state as well, whether that's in infrastructure, broadband connectivity, to strategic sites up on the North Slope, building infrastructure like antennas, ground stations as a service, which is something that we're looking at very closely here over the next couple of years. But sort of that nexus between strategic location, technology, connectivity that can really advance missions and facilities up here, using Alaska as a strategic resource that it is. In addition to that, creating things like workforce programs using the university system. We've got long partnerships with UAA, UAF, and also Ilisavik, which is a local college up on the North Slope, to really develop that workforce of the future and connect them with the opportunities that our partners bring and that we can bring back to the state of Alaska. So happy to talk offline, answer any questions you guys might have. And once again, thanks for the opportunity to talk about ASRC Federal.
Outstanding. Thank you very much, Eric. Woohoo! Last but certainly not least, Ed Slater, the Director of Government Aviation for OneWeb. And just for the sake of the time, because we're running a little bit tight for time here, we'll ask folks, in order to keep Brittany happy, we will have people take questions offline after the conclusion of this presentation day, as opposed to taking Q&A. Ed, you've got the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, and thanks for having me. I'm just waiting for a slide to come up.
Your slides are coming up.
Yeah. All right, so I just want to give a little update on OneWeb. We are back, and we are doing well. We believe, OneWeb is tailor-made for the Alaskan region and what it can bring for satellite communications, especially in remote areas. And so this is where OneWeb's going. So right now we're in a cadence. We're launching satellites Our mission is to bring, LEO capacity to the Alaskan regions. We will do this as a wholesaler type network, where we will partner with, different companies that already operate within the region, that have the connections within the regions, have the customer base, who understand what the customers need here. We think that will make the transition to OneWeb much simpler. So big deal, high bandwidth. People are like, well, what does that mean? It's in the hundreds of megabits, not 2 and 3, right? So much different. Latency is much different. Where if you have ever used a geo satellite, you're talking 700 milliseconds to a full second, or in the latency, we're going to be closer to about 50 milliseconds. So that comes into user experience, the ability to do data quickly. Let's see. All right, so who is OneWeb? So OneWeb satellites are a little bit different. We don't operate on, if you know anything about satellites, we don't operate on the standard iDirect or a Viasat type surf beam modem. We actually use an LTE technology. I'll just hit a couple points on all this because there's a ton of it and we're short on time. The other thing I want to say, especially for the military folks, you will see a slide in here. You will see all of our investors. The company has a lot of foreign investors. Therefore, we bought a company in Texas. It should close in the next month or so. A company called Trustcom, that is a defense integrator now, and that will become the DoD proxy, or the U.S. proxy for OneWeb, and all government business will be handled within that proxy. That should close in the next couple months, and the board should be announced sometime this week. And of course, when everybody sees the board, you'll know all the names. They're all well-known folks, so it's good for us. So this is how OneWeb come out. So as most people may know, last year OneWeb went into bankruptcy. It got originally bought out by the UK government and a company called Bharti, which is an India telecom company. Since then, Eutelsat has come in. Bharti came in for another large investment. SoftBank's in there, and then Hughes is also in there. And this time we're done. Funding rounds are all done. Somehow we went through a bankruptcy and then come out and did, all the funding we needed in about 9 months. So it's going pretty smooth. So this is the design of the network. So we'll have a total of 588 satellites. That's what we need to have full global coverage. There'll be 60 in spare satellites, which will allow the network to self-heal, meaning if we lose a satellite, every plane in the network will have a spare satellite. So it's just a matter of days before we heal wherever that is. But it's, in LEO, it's different than in GEO. If you lose a GEO satellite, it's going to take years to get it up there. We'll heal in a matter of days, right? It just takes a little time to transition them. The other thing is we have priority in the KU spectrum with both the FCC and ITU. This is our rollout plan. So OneWeb's plan originally, because I was part of the original OneWeb, was we were going to do everything all at one time. We've kind of changed that. We're taking a crawl, walk, run approach. Therefore, we will do everything starting November of this year. We will do above 50, and we'll focus on fixed sites. So whether we do communal broadband, we do schools, we do military installations, all fixed going. As we get into next year, as the service fills in and we get where we have more persistent coverage throughout the globe, then we will move to mobility products. So we will have land mobility products, we will have maritime solutions, we will have aviation solutions. On here, I think the biggest takeaway from here, there's a lot going on here, but the one point I would want to say is OneWeb is how we do our traffic, how we provide quality of service. It allows us to be a lot more flexible in how you buy it. So usually right now, if you did like a communal broadband, you would buy some capacity, you would do some QoS on your side to make sure your most important data come out. But at the end of the day, you're paying the same amount for your critical data as you are for somebody that was just doing a web search. In OneWeb, we do that for you. So you can actually have that lower rate traffic at a lower cost than your critical data, right? Which is much different than the way it is done now. So this is kind of where we're at right now. We have 254 satellites, so we're getting just about to 50%. If you're looking for any demos, we have demo sites in in Talkeetna here in Alaska, which is actually also OneWeb's largest, what we call an SMP. It's where we initially land traffic. We also have facilities in Florida. There should be one more on there. You can actually do it in Washington, D.C., also in Gaithersburg. And then just some of the markets, of course, yes, we're going to focus on government, but we still have to have a commercial entity, so we still have to do maritime, enterprise, and commercial aviation, business aviation. So we'll be in all of those markets. So why OneWeb? High-speed, low-latency connectivity. Me being a retired Air Force guy, spent his whole career as a communications operator. In my time, this is probably, I wish I was back flying and got to actually use something like this versus what we were using in the Air Force. It's going to change a lot of mission sets. So that's it.
I guess I'd close with saying, why OneWeb? I'd say, why not, right?
Why not?
Okay, giddy up. Round of applause for these champions.